Recording in progress.
Oh my God, it's week 6, Jay. We've actually done 5 weeks prior to this. Here we are.
Well, damn.
So we are on chapter 11 this week. We only got through a little bit last week. It was like a chapter and a half. But yeah, we're moving on to chapter 11. And you said that you had a lot of notes for this chapter. So let's have you ring the bell and start us off.
Yeah, but listen, I'm going to pass the baton real quick. You dig in this quote to the chapter or what?
No, I'm not. Are you?
Well, I defer to you. You kind of.
I'm the quote guy.
You're the quote guy.
I'm the quote guy. Yeah. So the chapter name is "There is only one self." The quote at the top of the chapter is "Otherness for the one, capital O, is the one without otherness." Do you have any interpretation that you'd like to speculate on that?
No, none whatsoever.
Me either. Shouldn't even read it. All right, man. So go ahead. You got all of those notes. At least you claim to have some notes. You think you're smart? Let's do it.
Sounds good. So right off the bat, Ty, I think of the first paragraph where so he says, the reason that your sense of self feels very real is that there is something that is undeniably true about your sense of yourself. When I suggest that the separate self or the ego is an illusion, I do not mean to imply that it is non-existent. An illusion is not something that is non-existent. It is something that does not exist. It's not something that doesn't, it is something that does exist, but it's not what it appears to be.
Yeah.
So I just made a note on the side.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I do. And I just made a note for myself is that our sense of self is legit as a reminder. It is the belief in being separate from everyone and everything that is the issue. And I would say for me, when I think about it, when we merge the two together, that I have a sense of self and then therefore I am separate, is where we get stuck in that illusion of misinterpreting that sense of self. And to me, that's the silver bullet in all of this, is the idea that we can have this sense of self, but be cautious on therefore assuming it means that my nature therefore is independent of yours and I'm a separate self.
Yeah, and I think that one of your homeboys, Walensky, speaks pretty well to this, and you might want to cross-stream some of that false core, false self principle there, because he really alludes to what Rupert's kind of saying here. That illusion, that false core illusion, or I should say the false self illusion, it's totally a real aspect of experience, and yet it's not what you think it is.
Yeah, I think it goes back to many exercises that he and also Walensky talk about, which is when we mistaken our nature, our identity with our personality, that's the issue. Not that this sense of self is inappropriate or incorrect or doesn't exist, And yeah. I always like the quote Walensky uses a lot from Korbinski, I think is the author or writer. He says, the map is not the territory. And so our personality is not essential to us. It's not our essential nature.
Yeah.
It's something that we experience, these patterns of thinking, feeling, sensing, etc. We experience them, but doesn't necessarily mean that we are them. Sure. And I always go back to when we talked about a couple of weeks ago, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, where Rupert talks about, we experience a tree or a cloud and we do not overtly attribute them to, oh, that is me, right? They're a cloud. We easily can create this perceived separation, but we don't do that, interestingly enough, with thoughts, emotions, perceptions. And yet we could easily just as much do that if we were to sit back and observe witnessing those experiences no more or less than a bird, a tree, a cloud, a car, etc.
Yeah.
That, to me, that metaphor was a really cool, powerful one.
I think it's at least what I've been noticing. I've actually started to apply some of these questions to my coaching work lately, and asking people, are you that thought? Are you that thought that I am depressed? Or are you anxiousness itself? And when that question confronts people, and obviously ourselves, we've been playing with it, but I'm sure you have that experience of when you ask somebody that, they're like, well, no, but how do you find that connection between that, or I should say disconnection, really, with the identification of, oh shit, actually I am not that thing, but then what am I? Which can be confusing and disorienting, of course.
Yeah, and that's, I guess in part, that's why they have this concept called the progressive path, because you do it progressively and incrementally, so that, to me, I always come back to like plant medicine. Like, if you've done no inner work and you're thrown into plant medicine and you have a doozy of a trip, it could kick your ass.
For sure.
Especially when you don't have any skill set underneath you of meditation or vipassana, or haven't done any of the inner work. So I think there's something to be said about all of that.
Absolutely structure. And if you don't have that, I've experienced myself huge rebounding effects from even journeys, like my first journeys and my first plant medicines. Like, there's going to be an ego blowback for them, more likely than not, if there's not some slower invitation or graspable invitation for some of these things that can deconstruct the sense of self. And you see that with people losing that completely for long periods of time. That's kind of, they don't have a structure behind orienting what they really are, what this really is, and that's lostness. There's not a way to organize that.
Kind of like watching the movie Dazed and Confused, man.
Yeah, well, actually, I think Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas would be a better representation, but
I've never seen it.
Oh, you haven't? Johnny Depp.
What is it again?
Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
I'll maybe put it into my queue.
Put it into the queue, since you're all a big lonely loser over there all for a while.
I'll be by myself in the next 2 weeks. So
Are you going to leave the apartment? I guess you're going. I guess you're going to the gym.
I do go to the gym. Outside of that, and I go food shopping. Outside of that, I look down. I don't make any eye contact with anyone. I don't acknowledge anyone ever. I walk around like in a bubble.
You're doing walking vipassana.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's reorganize ourselves here. Do you have anything going on to page 84, 85?
He uses this analogy here for the next couple of pages about King Lear and John Smith, and that metaphor. And so, make a long story short for folks, and for reminding ourselves, John Smith is the person, so that would be synonymous with our essential nature. Well, no, not John Smith is not the actor. John Smith is the person. And King Lear is the Shakespearean play of when he goes to the theater at night and puts on the costume and plays King Lear. Does that make sense now?
Yeah, but John Smith is the actor, is the individual that steps into the character of King Lear.
Yeah, fair. Okay. Thank you. Yes. But in a sense, though, John Smith is equivalent to our essence, right? Yes. He's just, and that King Lear is the actor in the drama that he's portraying on the theater stage, and we can extrapolate, and he invites us to extrapolate that King Lear is our personality, it is our persona, it is our life, it is the game, the outfit, so to speak, that we're wearing while navigating the character that we're playing while navigating life. I'm called Jason, you're called Tyler. So those are our characters, just like King Lear. And so he gets into the idea that when the play is over, rather than disrobing and recalling at the whole time that he is John Smith playing a character, he says we get lost, that we become and embody and merge completely and forego our recollection of who and what we are. And then we go home with the outfit on, and we're interacting with the world with the outfit on, and the world that around us is equally confused, saying, "Hey, John Smith, what the hell are you doing?" And he's saying, like, "I'm not John Smith, thank you very much," etc. So I really thought that that's such a powerful illustration of this idea around misrepresenting or misidentification of who we are for our personality or for the body that we're in. Super cool. I don't know. So how did that I'm curious, how did that metaphor hit for you?
Well, I didn't take any notes, but there's a chance I was reading this at 10 p.m. at night and my brain was just fucked at the time. I do like it. I do like it though. I mean, it's a really, because maybe I didn't note it because he's kind of referred back to this concept a couple times with the actor and the character. But what's coming to mind for me now as we talk about it is like, how could we actually play with this in our own lives right now? Like, is there a character that maybe represents your ego the best that you might really enjoy stepping into? Let's say like Thor is your character. Is there a chance that you could actually play with that in your real life, stepping into your ego, identifying with it more wholeheartedly and consciously, and then stepping back out of it and being like, okay, my essence, I'm no longer associated with that? There could be some cool exercise to play with there.
It might be. I wouldn't doubt it. What comes up for me is the caution. I always think of it as like, we do lucid dreaming. And so there's this concept called lucid waking, where while you're living in, like, as we're having a conversation, we're supposedly awake, that while we're awake, can we simultaneously know that what my nature is while I play the character, and play the character so goddamn well that you wouldn't know from an outsider looking in that I would know that I was both dancing with both levels of dimension and within my awareness, right? I think that is the invitation. That's the sweet spot, if you will, for life. It's kind of like one of my favorite philosophers is Alan Watts, and he talks about engaging life and engaging stuff with a wink and a smile, is how he phrases it.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. So I think that you're kind of saying that the difficulty of actually stepping into that character wholeheartedly and presently would kind of distract us from being able to recognize, again, what our essence actually is. But maybe if we jump back.
What is Ash doing there?
Yeah, what the fuck is Ash doing? She's just making a bunch of noise.
I mean, fucking pounding, making all kinds of ruckus.
I literally gave her the dirtiest look, everybody, just so you know.
Good.
Noise shaming her.
I mean, we need to give that girl a lot of dirty look. Damn.
So Heath Ledger, right? Like Heath Ledger stepped into the role of the Joker and lost himself, right? Because at least this is what I know. I'm not fucking pro about this stuff, but based on what I know, he stepped into that role and lived that role and lost himself in that role. So I don't think that's an uncommon thing with actors, which is kind of what you're describing your concern as.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, there's two other actors that come to my mind is Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah.
And then the other one was Jim Carrey. When they take on or embody so deeply, emotionally, in totality. Like I've heard of stories where when the actors are preparing for the role or in the role, like some of them say, "Don't refer to me as Joaquin. My name is Johnny, and that's how for the next 9 months you have to engage me as Johnny.
Yeah.
They really go pretty crazy into it.
Yeah.
And I can imagine that roller coaster ride of coming out of one role to the other, or like Christian Bale. Like I think of like some actors like that who are really in it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you on that. Okay. Well, moving right along. So finishing out page 85, the price of name and form.
Oh, can I just, I'm gonna throw something else out here.
Yeah.
So I think this is just really cool from the book.
We'll see about that.
So you're right. Well, we'll have to test this out. Two areas here. It's on 84 in the middle. It says King Lear is not a person in his own right. So even the belief I am King Lear is really John Smith's knowledge of himself, albeit colored by the character of King Lear. And in other words, there are not two people, John Smith and King Lear. There's just one person, either revealed as John Smith or concealed as King Lear. However, from our own perspective, King Lear believes and feels that he is a real person, and he suffers accordingly. King Lear is right to feel that he is real, but he wrongly attributes that reality to himself as an independent existing person, forgetting that his sense of himself is derived solely from the reality of John Smith. John Smith is, as such, the reality of the illusory person, King Lear. I just think that was well articulated.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I have much to say in response to that. I mean, it's different layers, I suppose, different lenses of which the self is perceiving or thinking itself as.
Yeah, I think we just misattribute this sense of self to an independent existing entity called Jason or Tyler.
Yeah.
Because we're so attached to personality in our body, we see ourselves as confined to those elements.
Yeah. So do you think that for you personally, you're most attached to the part of yourself that is righteous and right and knowledgeable?
Yeah, I can see aspects of where I attach to that, no doubt. And kind of judgments and opinions. I mean, in part, though, it's part of my character and the role that I'm playing. So can I do it in a way that I just don't lose myself so much so that I don't forget what am I? And yet, conditioning is the conditioning of the body. My neurological system is still going to chemically react in a way. And so to me, that's why it's over time that, so I don't know if that answers your question.
It does.
How do you feel about your own question?
Oh yeah, I mean, I definitely try to convince myself of those identifications regularly. And like now it's easy to look back on it as we have the conversation, and as maybe in a coaching call you provoke those kinds of thoughts. But yeah, man, and as you go about life, you just get sucked. I'll say I get sucked back into the habitual patterns of what I think I am as this illusory self doing life. Because there's a part of us that has to get through life too. Like we have certain things to manage, and we have to manage them a certain way based on our skills or way of being thus far. Excuses. I see that happen for myself often, if not regularly.
Yes, sir. All right, I'm going to just read this one little section and move on. It's in the middle of 85. It says, what is commonly referred as enlightenment is simply the removal of your ignorance of yourself and the clear seeing of yourself as you essentially are before you are qualified in any way by experience, or i.e. associating yourself as being King Lear. And, for me being a recovering self-improvement addict, that is so refreshing because, how many of us are on the path of whatever enlightenment means for each one of us, happiness, getting out of my misery, having some peace in my life, whatever we want to attribute that to. And we typically think of it as, I want some kind of permanent state of bliss and never regress or go backwards, quote unquote, at least in the circles that I've heard people share their versions of and my interpreting of it. And it's such a breath of fresh air for me to just breathe and relax into the idea that it's just a simple recognition. It's not a pomp and circumstance. It's not a this major cataclysmic event. Yeah. It's as simple as just reminding, coming back to yourself, reminding or coming to the awareness and understanding and the recollection of what you are. And that's it. And in part, I think we've been sold, I don't know, maybe I'm making this up. I would just say in part, people have been sold a bill of goods that we're all trying to strive our asses off to get to this permanent blissful state, which is to me a form of bypassing and resisting what is life. And
spiritual materialism.
Yeah, well said. I think I appreciate that phrase. It's just a radical breath of fresh air for me. It was like, okay, I can fucking stop working so hard on trying to arrive at some point in the future that I can finally feel good and accept what is. Where this is challenging you to say, you have what is right now. It's just a matter of perception.
Oh, yeah, I'm with you on that one. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Wrapping up that page. Yeah, let's see if I I really don't have much to offer in addition to any of that.
I just put on the next page, which is, I think I'll just restate it. I just made my note for myself is, can I play the game of life, exploring how to play my part and experience my life while knowing my nature? That to me was how I summed it up. About playing this control drama and play, this mystical drama, or whatever phrase we want to call it. Can I learn how to play my part, experience life while knowing my nature?
Cool. Keep it rolling.
All right.
Throw 86, 87.
Sure, that was 86 for me.
Yeah, I guess this chapter didn't really impress me very much. I mean, he keeps going on. I think my experience of certain points that he makes, they can like make sense to me. And then he just like keeps talking about it. And like, I don't make any notes about it because it doesn't seem like it needs to be noted based on something new that we haven't talked about already. So I'm not going to note just because it's like new to this chapter or something we haven't already discussed.
Acknowledged.
Cool. So anything else you'd like to share on finishing up chapter 11?
I'm just looking at the last page here. Okay, so right before the quote of the question in the middle of 88, so actually right above it, all psychological suffering takes place on behalf of this apparent separate self or ego. Maybe said in another way, it's only King Lear, so to speak, metaphorically, who suffers. That John Smith, in and of himself, does not suffer psychologically, that is. And I think that's a hard pill for our ego to swallow, because to suggest that our essential nature has zero suffering abilities. The ego that's wounded and defended wants to say this one, right?
I think everybody listening is probably saying the same thing.
Yeah.
It's tough.
And then the last statement there, it says, thus the apparent separate self or ego who seeks happiness and the true and only self of pure awareness whose nature is happiness are the same self, partially concealed in the former, fully revealed in the latter.
Super nicely poetic.
Yeah.
Line there for sure.
Good shit.
Yeah.
All right.
And that message is what it is.
And that leads us right into chapter 12, which is the title is Who Is It That Suffers? So this is going to be a fucking doozy.
I want to lead this off by saying, and asking the question, does a dog suffer in its own experience?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Or are you making a generalized statement?
Yeah, you could try.
Does a dog suffer? I would say to some, I wouldn't say a dog would suffer. No, I would say a dog deals with pain, physical pain. Yeah. It has a neurological system.
Yes.
But I would again, I don't know about all the research around dogs, right? And I would say though, by default, dogs can think, they can be entrained. I don't see them having a prefrontal cortex that has all this detailed capability. I don't think dogs, in a sense, are self-aware like a human being is self-aware, as best as I can tell. And as a result, it is the self-aware mechanism that, to me, would lead one to the potential to misidentifying who and what I am. So that's what I would propose.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I've asked this question to many people, many dog owners too. I am a dog owner. I don't hate dogs. I don't hate animals. I think that they experience pain, and to me, suffering is the how do I even say this? I was going to say non-equanimous equanimity, not being in your essence, in your awareness, as you're experiencing discomfort and creating a story, a personal story about the discomfort that creates suffering. Pain is its own thing in itself that arises within our experience, but it's the story around it, I think, that creates suffering.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think even Gabor-Mate is I'm going to paraphrase him, but he basically says trauma is not the event. Trauma is started and maintained through the interpretation of what that event means.
Yep.
So if we bring him his expertise, as I recall it, it would play right into what you're saying, that there is a difference. And I think even our language around, sometimes people talk about emotional pain. And I always find, if we were to filter it through that lens of what we're now talking about, isn't it interesting on how often that is referred to as a phrase? I'm in emotional pain.
Yeah.
And yet, if we can even
where's that pain happening?
Yeah, like where, like if you, to your point, right? So we would say, tell me when you experience sadness, is the emotion or sensation in and of itself painful? And I've yet to find a single person who can attribute an emotion as in and of itself is painful. And I would invite anyone to test that for themselves personally, that when you're frustrated, one of the exercises, remember we did together, and I've done it with a lot of other people, is set aside the stories and the thinking and the ideas and the memories from the emotion, right? So segment it out, be like a good surgeon, and put that to the side and just experience the emotion of anger. And is that, when you experience just the raw emotion, is that painful? And if anyone wants to throw in there that yes, it is, then I would love to have that conversation with you. It's no more true for me than, is a thought painful? I am sad. I am having a good day. So I think we have so many working assumptions and just these beliefs about how things work and operate versus really challenging ourselves and really diving deep into, can a thought be painful?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's like a really triggering thing to ask somebody as well, or even ask yourself, because we are so identified with and I say we, most of us are very identified with the suffering that is a result of certain thought or certain physical whatever. And I'm not sure what the right way, there's no right way to provoke the consideration of a thought actually not being painful in itself. So there is not a chance we get through chapter 12 within 10 minutes, just so you know.
You want to pause here, brother, because this is a big one.
Yeah, this is a big one. I have a lot of notes, and I think last time we agreed upon the fact that we were going to stop on the actual chapter to stay organized. So I'm actually going to end it with the quote on the beginning of the next chapter, just so that we provoke a little bit of thought and interest based on what chapter 12 is about. And chapter 12 is called "Who Is It That Suffers?" Who is it that suffers? And the quote is by Rumi, saying, "Let yourself be silently drawn by the stronger pull of what you really love." I really like that one. Yeah. And bada bing, bada boom. Happy Friday, y'all. Happy 4th of July weekend. Jay, anything to share or note as we say peace out?
Nope.
We're doing so good. How many weeks is it going to take us to finish this thing, huh? This tiny little book.
Hey, it's 1 week at a time, brother.
Hey, I'm enjoying my dance with you, per usual.
Ditto. All right, brother. Have a good week.
Peace out, Instagram. Later.